For those of you who knew, we don't usually have a screen up front, so today we're going to do something a little different, spontaneous. Last week I got an email from a man named Max Pugh, somebody who I didn't know. He identified himself as the older brother of Phap Lin. I don't know if anybody's been to Plum Village or some of Thich Nhat Hanh's retreats. He's an elder monk. He's English in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. I know him pretty well. He's really good man, good monk. So this is his older brother, and he's a cinematographer. And maybe a number of years ago, 10 years ago, there was this full-length movie called Walk With Me. It was actually shown in movie theaters. So he was that was him. He was the cinematographer for that. And again, he's also Phap Lin's older brother, but I mean, he's a professional. And so he's calling me because he's now doing the preliminary work for a new movie on Thai called Interbeing, which is really going to be about, the first one was really about the Thich Nhat Hanh community, Thai and his current community. And this one's going to be about his life. It's going to be called Interbeing. And because he had heard that I had met Thai and known Thai since the mid-'70s, this is sort of his time in his life when he was not a Buddhist teacher in the West, but functioning in a very different way and a very different kind of person. So he was interested in kind of picking my brain about those years and getting the timeline of Thai and things like that. So we had a very, and I was able to give him some other names of people who had been involved with Thai back in the '70s, which is 50 years ago. Kind of interesting as you get older and you go, wow, that was 50 years ago. Anyhow, so, a lot of those people are no longer alive, including Thai. so anyhow, so he's making this documentary on Thai. So again, it was wonderful to share stories and talk about that time. And then he reminded me that he had done a short 29-minute movie about Thai's life called The Cloud Never Dies. So I had seen it. It's on YouTube, but I hadn't seen it in years. So I watched it, and I was very moved by it. Because Thich Nhat Hanh was a very special human being. And I think in this age we live in, we have kind of narrowed down, dumbed down what we think is a unique human being. Or we have lost our capacity to see the potential of nobility and greatness, wisdom and intelligence, compassion that is inherent in all of us. And so to encounter someone where all those capacities are awakened in them and see them the way they are and the way they teach, and we are very fortunate. So anyhow, so what I thought was, I'd share the video. How many people have seen it in the past? How many people have never seen it? Good. Oh, this can be new for you. All right. But as somebody who's probably seen it 2 or 3 times, it's always inspiring, because the other wonderful thing about this mind of ours, it's always in the present. The past is something we have to make up by thinking about it. The future is something we have to make up by thinking about it. But whatever is real is happening in the present, and the present is always fresh, is always new, when we're fresh and new. So I'm just saying that for those of you who might have seen this before, you've really never seen it before. This is going to be totally different as you see it. So let's watch the movie, and then we'll talk about it. And again, it's not just to get the facts of his life, but just to kind of get the unfolding of a great being. And the important thing in seeing that is that we become inspired. That each of us can become ourselves a great being. Because you'll see, Thich Nhat Hanh, he was just born an ordinary kid in Vietnam, in a family. He didn't walk on water at 7, he didn't and yet he became a great being. So, can everybody, do we need to turn the lights off in here? So, what's there to say? Right? He said it all, didn't he? So, I was he had a stroke in 2014, and unexpected. And so his last major teaching before then was in a 3-week retreat in Plum Village, and the teachings he gave have been encapsulated in a book called The Art of Living. And so if you're interested in sort of his development from the miracle of mindfulness, The Art of Living is a wonderful place to get a sense of the way he was looking at the world and us and what he considered the most essential teaching. I was going to talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to. I'd like to hear from you. So it offers us a challenge, doesn't it? I mean, he really, we see the way he operated in the world, right? Fearlessly, not shying away from challenges, difficulty, vast personal suffering within himself, the world, society, and just always manifesting this awakened energy and always trying to wake us up. And this documentary was an excellent example of him trying to wake us up. And he challenges us. He says, he said, civilizations vanish. And definitely we can certainly make a case that what's going on in our world is not facilitating a great future for the planet, is it? And yet he says we have the opportunity of making this the century of spirituality, but there has to be a great awakening, and the great awakening is within each of us. That's our responsibility to individually wake up and to put these wonderful teachings into practice and to begin to manifest in our own lives, relationships, a new way of being, to feel that responsibility. So, I'm interested, any questions? Again, I met Ty in 75. Any questions online? Chatted into Bill. Any questions in the hall, or what touched you? I would imagine you were touched. Yes, and we'll keep our comments brief.
Thank you very much, Fred. That was a wonderful presentation, and it did touch me.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, though, what today we do for young people. How do we enroll young people? Is there his mindfulness trainings, how young do they reach? I know we've got a children's program here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a common thing throughout his monasteries to include a children's program? How broadly spread is that to help us even train us adults to relate to younger people?
Yeah, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh had if anybody ever went to his retreats, he loved children. And actually, I used to, beside my own connection with him as a Dharma teacher, when I was raising my children, I used to love taking them to Thich Nhat Hanh retreats in this country, and we used to go to Plum Village every other year, because it was the only Buddhist community that I knew of which held retreats for children. I mean, the children were welcome. It was a wonderful environment. It was a community, and my kids, if they think about spending 2 weeks at Plum Village on retreat, it was like Buddhist summer camp. They were very free. And there were programs for them, and they were just allowed to be around. I mean, everybody sort of took care of them, and every Dharma talk, Thai would give a Dharma talk every day, and the children would be brought up first. And he would speak to them for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I always thought it was the best part of the program, because they could leave after 10 or 15 minutes of going through the program. But, he just spoke very directly and sweetly to them, answered their questions. I mean, it was really quite, yeah. And then he had he had a very special interest in young people. Young people are the future, obviously. We have a wake-up group here. Some people here are in wake-up. Or were in wake-up. Anybody who was in wake-up when they were younger? Yeah. So we have people and other people. So we have a wake-up community for younger people and a family. Could we do more? Of course. But I mean, again, it's, we have people who are parents. I mean, we can only do so much as a Florida community mindfulness. I mean, we can inspire, we can train, we can give people skills and tools. But, we have a membership of 300, we reach, I think what this is about is it's really up to each of us, wherever we are, within our families, our relationships, our extended families, in our communities, to do what we can, to bring that. He did, as you see, started an initiative with teachers. I forget what it's called. They talked about it. What? Yeah, wake up, but they have teachers make a better world, or happy teachers make a better school. But anyhow, so there are all kinds of initiatives. But it's got to build, right? It's got to build, and not unfortunately, but the transformation takes time. One can read the book and be inspired, but unless one has some sort of personal, their own development of transformation, as Thai said, happy teachers make happy schools. And if you look at the state of education today and what teachers go through, how many teachers are happy doing what they're doing? I mean, most teachers I know, it's not an easy life being a teacher these days. So, I mean, happy teachers make happy schools. Happy, compassionate, open, stress-free parents can raise children in that way, or have a better chance of raising children in that way. So, I mean, the one message he would always give is, you want a peaceful world, you have to become a peaceful person. You want a loving world, become a loving person. You want a world that doesn't have anger in it, liberate yourself from your own anger. I mean, he was very, what we can see, he had a global perspective, transform the world, but he understood the world is people. There's no world outside of people. And when we look at all that's going on in the world, it's all being done by human beings, right? And each of those human beings has a mind. And it's those minds that are creating the suffering for themselves and other people. And so we can endlessly change systems and ideologies and all this and politics, but at the end of the day, it's human beings have to change their consciousness, and that's what he was so committed to. As you can see, he called, like what we're doing here, he called it a community of resistance. That was his goal, that we should be forming communities of resistance everywhere. But, it's not political resistance. We think of resistance like political resistance, like the French resistance or, during World War II. He meant communities that resist the toxic culture of consumerism, of materialism, well, you know what I'm talking about. And he says, it's hard for individuals to do it by themselves. And so we need to form communities where people are nourished and learn how to nourish themselves, with a very different set of values and experiences than they're getting in the everyday world. I mean, most people who I know who go to work with the kind of jobs that people do, well, there may be various kinds of, hopefully various kinds of benefits or things they enjoy. I don't get a sense that work these days really nourish people inwardly. Right? They don't get a lot of that. Is that congruent with people? It's not like a lot of inner nourishment. I.e., we are human doers. We're not human beings. And so, we live in a culture that rewards, stimulates, encourages us to do more and more. Productivity, do more and more. But, before we were human doers, we were human beings. And beings has to do with how I am as a human being. And I would imagine when you get your evaluation every year from your supervisor, they don't have all kinds of characteristics about your being and how your being is, right? It's all about doing. So, we have to create alternative places where people can learn how to take care of their being, the kind of person they are. Anyhow, thank you. Yes, Angie?
Just adding on, yesterday, Karuna, Fred's daughter, who heads our family program, and I agree that we're going to have our first family retreat before the end of the year. Just announcing that we're going to have our first family retreat before the end of the year, and that's an aspiration that we have, to start having weekend retreats where families can come, stay in Great Cloud, a bit like a Buddhist slumber party, and to begin to include children, because that was such a wonderful aspect of what Thai did.
Right, we call it old ages, all ages. So, people can come, the families, different ages. Any other questions or comments? Yes, anybody online, Bill?
From Chris, if you would like, Fred, it's how has the direction of Plum Village and its operation been managed since the passing of Thai? I guess how has it been able to continue with the teachings?
Well, they're very active. I mean, they're having to, find their own way. Thai, very traditional in sort of the Zen tradition, that when a teacher has a successor, names a successor, right? Thai did not name his successor. He was really, he was a creative person. So he says, he would say, the world needs a new Buddha, and the next Buddha will be the Sangha. He says this is too much for one person to do. So he said, so his Sangha, his monastic Sangha, his lay Sangha, is what he called his continuation, right? It's like, it's like up to us. We are his manifestation, right? I mean, we for those who are new, you get a sense of, what he's teaching us, what he's sharing with us, what he's encouraging us. And he's asking us to be the ones who bring it in the world. Yeah, so they're, my sense is they're doing well. They've had to find a way without their father. And Chung Kung, from what I understand, she's in a wheelchair now, and her capacities are very limited. She's quite old too. So there's a whole new generation of senior monks and nuns and lay people who are continuing it, and they seem to be doing well. Financially stable, etc. Other comments, questions? Yes, Didi?
Well, thank you for all that wonderful presentation on Thai. And I particularly appreciated how he says the way out is in, and how you're always encouraging constant practice. And also the power of the Sangha has always, brought me here and kept me here. But what I struggle with is, how do I function in a world that I don't believe in, or when I see things happening that just really upset me, how do I take myself and be in this world in the most authentic way? And even like I wonder how Thai would have been, because he certainly was a proponent of engaged Buddhism. And I wonder how to take his way of being into the world myself.
Well, again, I think one of the things that you get from this movie is that Thai's Buddhism was not something that just occurred within the confines of a beautiful rural monastery. So he entered the world, and as he said, he was not a social activist. I mean, he was a Zen monk. He was a Buddhist monk, responding to the suffering that was going on in his community. As he said, when the bombs were when we could hear the bombs falling outside the monastery, we could no longer sit in peace. We had to do something. Yeah, so he did what he did, but he did it in his way. I mean, he never took he was in the midst of a civil war between competing ideologies, right? The communist ideology of the North, the capitalist Catholic ideology of the South, right? And he staked out what he called the third force. Don't take sides. People are suffering. Peace. He saw through ideologies. We live in a time. Is there ever a war that doesn't have reasons? I mean, wars always have reasons, right? But he refused to go into that realm. He said, people are being killed. Human beings are being killed. Civilians, children are being killed. That's the most salient thing. So, he was fearless in that. Did he stop the war? No. Right? Did the Buddhist movement stop the war? No. What did he get for that? Exile. They didn't want him back. Did that cause him suffering? Yeah. I mean, actually, when I first met him in '75, he had just really realized that they weren't allowing him back. All he wanted to do was go back home and help his country. He had so many students. Yeah, he suffered a lot. Right? So, I mean, when I saw him in Paris, he was suffering a lot. All the letters that they would receive constantly, only bad news he was getting from his disciples. So people see him at the end when he's this great Buddhist leader, the love and adulation of, but I saw him like when you're asking, when it was very painful. So what would he do? So, I mean, this is what I observed when I saw him and at other times. This was in Paris. So, I would see him, he'd read these letters, only telling suffering and needs, people had needs. I mean, there were orphans. I mean, if you remember the war, I know many the younger ones don't remember the war, but both sides it was just so destructive. And there was mass dislocation going on. I mean, orphans, people were being killed, mass dislocation. Nobody was taking care of them. So they organized, they did their best to organize ways to help people. But he would read these letters, and then at a certain time, he would I can remember him just putting them down and just sitting there, kind of nourishing himself, quieting his mind, coming back to his body breath. And every day he would, in the afternoon, everybody would stop work and he would just go out into the streets, walk the streets. He lived in a little suburb outside of Paris, just do mindful walking, to renew himself. And in the evening, there was no work, and everybody kind of got involved in meal preparation. And then after dinner, he would ask Kim Chang-kung to sing. She was a beautiful voice, and she would sing, and he would listen, and other people would sing, and he would recite poetry, and then they'd meditate, right? And then one time a week, they had what they called a lazy day. It didn't matter how much there had to be done. Everybody know, like, there's so much to be done, right? It's like the mantra of our society. Once a week, they had what they called a lazy day. They would just put everything down, no work, and they would just take care of themselves, clean, but very mindfully, cook, cook more elaborate meals, go for longer walks, do more meditation, reading, social interaction. People would come over for dinner and people would be together. It was just a total different way to nourish themselves. So his way is that we can learn in this life to take care of ourselves, even in the midst of great suffering and conflict. I mean, these days, people are just so out of control. They just listen to the news all the time, right? Just endlessly stimulating their minds, right? I mean, there's only one person who could stop that. Not the people making the news, putting on the channels. It's only, So I guess what I'm saying, he was very self-disciplined, and he knew his limits. I mean, it was just very interesting. He knew his limits. Like, enough suffering for one day, enough bad news, enough heartbreaking news. Got to just stop, put it all down. And many people think, well, isn't that kind of selfish? Right? Aren't you supposed to kind of keep exposing yourself nonstop? Yeah, but if you become negative, if you become depleted, I mean, that's what he was very clear about. We, the ones who want to heal the world, have to make sure that we're healed, have to make sure that we're whole. Right? Have to make sure that we're in a good place, hearts open, mind clear, stable, strong. So when we enter the world to deal with the suffering of other people or deal with our own suffering, we're doing it from a place that has some capacity to be of help. Yeah, so he lived it. I mean, that was one of the most impressive things about him. He lived it. And he also knew this, that human suffering is just going to keep going on as long as people. So he wasn't in a hurry. He was urgent. I mean, like, guys, we got to get it together. But he was never in a hurry. He was one of the few people I ever met who was never in a hurry. Even if he was late for a plane. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, he was always, dwelling happily in the present moment. He didn't live for the future. So, yeah, and at the, you could see, even though, during the Vietnam War, the times he did get involved in social movements in a supportive way. At the end of the day, as you can see from this thing, I mean, we need to form communities of resistance. We need to form communities that work from a different value system, different orientation, take care of people, help people, place where people can come and learn how to be whole again, how to heal. He felt this is the most essential work that he wanted his followers to do. Because who else is doing this work? So he really wanted to see the whole, the world. Well, he talked about America when he come here, he said there should be a, community of mindfulness in every town. He wanted a place for people to come and learn and heal, so they could go out into the world as more whole human beings and really be of help. And did that answer your question, Dee Dee? Huh?
It is helpful. I feel, though, that, so we're here together, and this is very healing, and we're becoming more mindful and more awakened. But probably most of us are not quite totally awakened. I don't feel like, I feel like we have to take ourselves as we are and balance the inner work with outer work, or how we're living our lives in this world. So that's something I haven't mastered yet, and still am working on that balance.
Yeah, again, balance, balance, getting my life in balance, is that a big deal these days? Everybody's talking about it, right? There are lots of books, self-improvement books, self-help, got to get my life in balance, right? Anybody know about that? I got to get more balance in my life is getting out of balance, right? But that usually, when you get your inner life in balance, the outer life will not be that important. You look at Thich Nhat. He could go, but he always did it in balance. Right? I've seen many great teachers, meditators, go, right? Like my Tibetan teacher, he'd get up at 3 a.m, do 4 hours of meditation, then all day long. Busy, building monasteries. They were refugees, all kinds of challenges, difficulties, right? He'd just be engaged all day. Right? At night he'd do his meditation, finish up 9, 10 o'clock, fall asleep. How could he do it? His inner life was in balance. When our inner life is in balance, we don't, again, I understand that if we don't have an inner life, strong inner life, or an inner life in balance, then getting the outer life in balance is sane. That's helpful. I'm not talking against that, right? But I'm saying when your inner life is in balance, you see, what stresses people? What people who want to get their life in balance, what stresses you? Other people. You know that's not true, Tony. You're learning that's not true. It's not other people, it's Tony's response to other people. And he gets what with other people? You can say it out loud. He gets angry with other people. He gets irritated with other people. He gets fed up with other people. That's what throws us off balance. Think about the things, stress, worry, anxiety. Those are all inner states. That makes it difficult to deal with life. To deal with the ups and downs of life is our fears, our anxieties, our angers, our resentments, our despairs, right? That's inner. That's not happening out here. So when we get our inner life in balance, it'll be much easier to just function very freely in our outer life. Again, as Tai said, we need a transformation in our consciousness. But again, that's a process. We're all going to start where we are, but thank you, Dee Dee.
One online, Fred, if you want.
Yes, of course.
Paul asks, how do we walk the path of engaged Buddhism, speaking, acting, and living bravely without hardening our hearts or allowing the anger, hatred, and misinformation around us to pull us into the very suffering we wish to heal, especially when the culture seems to be rejecting compassionate treatment of immigrants and the needy. I've been scolded for my Buddhist ideology from family, for instance.
Well, it's a lot there. So here we are. We're individuals. And as individual, we have our values, we have our things we think are important to us, we have the way we want to show up in the world, right? The way we like the world to be, the way we like people to be, and the way we'd like the world to respond to the way, to all our ways we want the world to be. Yeah, so, and when those get confused, there can be problems. So it's okay to do all the things that we do, to cultivate our own inward spiritual life, right? Of meditation, of mindfulness, of self-awareness, to become more open-hearted, more compassionate, more loving, more patient, more understanding, more intelligent, right? Those are all qualities that we are all cultivating, so we are beginning to manifest those wholesome qualities that are the potential for every human being, right? So when you look at somebody like Thich Nhat Hanh, he's just a human being. He's just like us. The only thing he's done, he spent a lifetime nurturing the wholesome qualities within him, right? And absolutely not nurturing the negative or the useless. And so when you get somebody who's energized themselves in that way, they have a certain kind of capacity. But that capacity we all have. But again, if we are honest, and we all need to be honest, if we look at, where's my mind all day? What am I cultivating all day? Where am I putting my energy all day? It's usually not there. So it'll produce a different result. But we have to understand that to be a noble, great being is not, it's only exceptional because most people don't work their life that way, right? And again, we have a society that doesn't reward us for our being. We have a society that rewards us for productivity, irrespective of how we are, right? As a human being. And so, when you enter the world or your extended family, they all might be what? Not interested. So that's okay. But maybe then why am I even bothering to even talk about my Buddhist whatever with people? More important how we show up in the world. Forget your Buddhism. If you run into somebody who's interested in Buddhism or Dharma meditation, well, you share it with them. But if most people aren't there, just love them for who they are. And don't bring up things that in any way, push them away. We are very, are we a task-oriented people? Are we an outcome-oriented people? Right? Do we want to, what are you evaluated on for those who still go to work? What are you evaluated on? Your personality, your sense of humor? Is that what you're evaluated on? What? Results. So we live in a society that really rewards for results. Not the process that brings the result. They just want, the results. So we are very task-oriented and we are very outcome-oriented. You get it? But this is different. Meditation, spiritual life is the process. It's not the end of the journey, it's about the journey. Right? It's about the kind of person I am. Right? We are primarily transforming ourselves because that is the one person that I can be pretty sure that I have the capacity of transforming. Right? Do we have the capacity of transforming our loved ones? What? Anybody try? They don't like it, do they? Again, we can transform ourselves. And, that's our first emphasis. I can transform myself. I can open my heart. I can be more patient. I can be more loving. I can be more understanding. I can be more helpful. I can be more selfless. I can be more caring. Right? We all have that. That's easy. I mean, it may be hard, but we all have that capacity. I can enter world more intelligently. I can see clearly, what's wholesome, what's not wholesome. What produces good outcomes, what produces wrong outcomes. And change my behavior. We all have that capacity. Right? So that is a good aspiration. Now, what you're learning from Thai is we have an aspiration for the world, but we also understand I am the world. There's no world outside of human beings and animals and plants, but I'm just saying, we're talking about human beings here. There's no world outside of human beings. And every time a human being changes, the quality of human beings in this world changes by a factor of 1. Right? 100, it's a factor of 100. 1,000 is a factor of 1,000. So let's take this little tiny little universe here in Florida, Tampa, Florida, the Florida Community of Mindfulness. Tiny, right? We have 300 members, 350 members, right? And maybe we have a reach of 1,000 beyond them, people who are connected with us, okay? A drop in the bucket, right? But each one of those people are connected. Family, friends, work, communities. Can you see it? Now, again, most wonderful thing is we're not the only organization and community with the same kind of values, same kind of orientation. So as more and more communities of resistance, whatever they call themselves, are established, and the more people begin to transform and change, and the more the way they relate to those around them, you can see society will change. Slowly. I mean, we see in our world today, with this orientation on political, social change, is what happens. It's all out here, which means what? It can change as a dime, on a dime, right? Right? Change the laws, change the this, all of a sudden, it's endlessly like that, because it's all external. But when human beings change, and you really have a society of people who do live on values, things will change. I mean, that is the Dharma of Thich Nhat Hanh. We need a change in consciousness. He says, over and over, the 20th century was the century of individualism and consumerism. And you can see where it got us. So the 21st century has to be one of spirituality, of collective, of interconnection, of people seeing themselves as one family, taking responsibility for each other, taking responsibility for the planet, the animals. It's got to be a different consciousness. That's Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching to us. I mean, is that clear? It's a powerful message. And it's not one we're receiving, on CNN or whatever, wherever you receive your news from. So where do people get their news from? I have no idea. Where do people get their news from? What? How do they learn about the world? NPR. Apple News. What? TikTok. Is that a news station or just? Oh, TikTok. Okay. Where else? Where else are people getting their news? Just shout it out. What? The Guardian, New York Times. What? So you get over there, tell you what's happening. Okay. Democracy Now. I mean, all kinds of places. Word of mouth, Fox News, and all the right. I mean, right, endlessly. Now, are these places in touch with everything that's going on in the world? I mean, every day a tiny little group of human beings decides what's important. I mean, millions and millions of things are happening every day, and there's a little tiny group of people decide what's important, right? And then you read stories about the few things that they think important, and we think we're learning about the world. Is that true? Are we really learning about the world? Are we just learning about a few things that are, very quite significant that are going on in the world? But maybe there are other significant things going on in the world. And again, when we read the news, when we listen to social media, what does that do to our minds? Does it make me wiser, more intelligent, more compassionate, more understanding? Is that what they're trying to do? We have to be very intelligent. Because what do we know about the people who run the media? Their purpose is what? Ratings. What? Ratings. And ratings because that means what? Money. And you know what sells? Fear. Emotion. Anger. Fear. Yeah, I mean, it's basic psychology. And when we understand that, I mean, this is why, to me, having an inner life gives you something that you can look at all this and not be affected by it. When you have a strong mind, it won't be manipulated. Your emotions won't be manipulated. Very important. You take a man like Thich Nhat Hanh, right? Started out small little town in Vietnam, right? Ended up a world teacher, millions of followers. He was always the same, right? He lived his life, spoke his truth. Didn't matter what went on. I mean, that's for me, a great teaching for all of us. Now, are all of us great beings of light like Thich Nhat Hanh? Probably not. But yet we all have the capacity, each of us, to do better, to walk stronger, to be truer to our inner light. Is that true? Yeah, that's true. That's all that's asked for us. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for enjoying the video of Thai's. Max Pugh is just beginning his journey of collecting information, raising funds, but he says it's going to be like Walk With Me, something that'll have wide release and be very professionally done, and so something we're looking forward to. Interbeing.